We've got you covered all season long. Welcome to the BCSN Nation podcast, powered by Buffalo Wild Wings.
All right, here it is. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 29 of the BCSN Nation podcast, powered by Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's go, sports bar. Brandon Carnes here with Justin Feldkamp, and stepping in as a pinch hitter for us today. We've got Scott Tucker. It is baseball season. We're getting into the swing of things, pun intended.
Wow.
Obviously, nailed it. That's it. We're done. Podcast
Mid-season
over. I
form.
don't need anything else to do the rest of the show. Gentlemen, I want to know what your moment is when spring rolls around that you're like, it is baseball season. Scott, you're our guest. You can go first.
I would say layers, and I mean, I have to have a coat on, I have to have a jacket, maybe
Sure.
a hat,
Ready
maybe,
for
maybe
anything.
some shorts, anything. All 4 seasons in one as we start the baseball season here in Northwest Ohio.
Classic Ohio weather, Justin.
Yeah, at this time of the year, you get periodic bursts of sunshine and 70 degrees and then back down. So honestly, it is a little bit of a frustrating part, but kind of all Midwest states deal with that. But a sign of baseball, you'll appreciate this, Scott. The sound of metal cleats on the concrete or asphalt.
Yeah. Those,
It's a distinct sound.
Yep, those days are over, the old metal cleats and all that stuff, but the same click, clack as you go
Yeah,
down.
there's still some
absolutely.
out there. There's still some out there. And hear that when you got the concrete or asphalt there in the dugout or
Sure.
maybe the park.
Absolutely. Hey, not a bad pick. I'm going with the obvious. Hens opening day.
Yeah, there you go.
There's just a feel when you're downtown, obviously, as we were for the opening day pre-game show and all that. There's a feel downtown, a buzz. The Hens get rolling. Baseball season is literally officially here at that point. But we've got plenty to talk about with baseball season. We'll take you around the 419, see what teams we think and what expectations we have for each league in the area. We've got our clip of the week. Plenty to come out on today's baseball season debut episode. Make sure you're here every single Wednesday throughout the spring as we alternate from baseball and softball seasons, taking you all the way to the state tournaments in June. Make sure you're here every single Wednesday, 4:30, or anywhere you get your audio mediums. BCSNNation.com/podcast. Anywhere, everywhere, we're there every single Wednesday. Make sure you follow us at BCSN Sports on any social media page so you don't miss anything from Wednesday to Wednesday. But now it is time. We're up to the plate, and we're starting with the NLL Cardinal Division. If you've seen the Blade preview, Clay tabbed as a favorite, but we've got some picks from our gentlemen here in the studio, including one who's not here today, but I'll sub in for him. NLL Cardinal picks, you see him on the screen, gentlemen. Napoleon across the board. We're not listening to what the Blade says, apparently. Justin, Scott, and, of course, Bruce Johnson. You see him, Baseball with Bruce over on Sports Nightly, all picking Napoleon. What are we not seeing in the Blade preview here that we're going Napoleon?
Yeah, but don't throw the Blade under the bus just because
Hey, you did it, not me. It's your pick.
Well,
I don't know.
No. I'm saying the Blade preview is based upon
Coaches'
the
polls,
coaches'
sure.
polls. So coaches think that. My hunch with Napoleon is they got some playoff pedigree under their belt from last year, and they have a bunch of returning guys. They're what I love, multi-sport, in some
Yes.
cases 3-sport athletes. And hats off to Rubenstein, who is going to play at Kent State for football. So you get those sometimes, Scott, those early enrollees for football. But he said, no, I want to finish my senior year and play basketball and baseball. So I love that as a parent, as a coach. So that's one of the reasons. You got Parker Woods, you got Owen Espinosa, and I just think that they have been building. And when you are at the high school level and you got a veteran leadership group, seniors who have been there, done that, that's why I tabbed them.
Yeah, and I'm right on the same wavelength with you. It's the pedigree. Those kids have come together 4 years.
Sure.
Great winning traditions. Football, they were a success. Nice run in football season. Those kids were all together there. And I think the key that Justin just hit on, the fact that Trey Rubenstein is staying, that's a real message to everybody else. And I think Clay, they're going to have talent. They always have talent.
Sure.
They got that good JV team coming up. But I think Napoleon, they're in for a good run this season.
Yeah, the returning haul, really the difference, right? At Napoleon, you talk about those 3 guys alone that we've seen multiple sports as they've gone through, as Justin mentioned. Clay, 7 graduating seniors from what was maybe at one point everybody thought the best team in Northwest Ohio throughout a lot of last season during the regular season. Injuries kind of plagued them as the playoffs came around, but that could be the difference, right? The experience versus we got guys stepping into bigger roles now.
100%. I think CJ Boudreau and Vinny Gallagher were the 2 main key cogs for that Clay team last year. CJ Boudreau getting some innings in his first freshman year at BGSU. And then Vinny Gallagher, originally committed to Eastern Michigan, no longer there. But two guys that Coach Jim Phillips is going to have to replace, and that's just part of high school baseball or any sport. But that JV team that Clay had, first place finish last year, I don't put too much into that, because if you got a freshman or a sophomore who's varsity caliber, you're going to be on varsity. So you can't say there's a core key group of only freshmen and sophomores who are now moved out of varsity. So, and that's JV teams are different from school to school to school. So I don't put too much into that. But Landon Eversman is the guy that I like for this Clay team. Yeah, so I think that he can make a big impact this year. Lots of new faces across the board. But in some cases, that doesn't mean like, oh man, it's a complete rebuilding year, especially when you have a program like Clay who has continuously developed talent year in and year out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going all the way back to Dick Candick with Clay, and then Carl Canerum as their head coach. As you said, they don't rebuild, they reload. But Justin's correct in that there's a difference of experience from that JV to varsity, and just in the maturation of that process. I think if you can get Landon Eversman to pitch well for Clay, they're going to compete. And I also think that group does have a little bit of a sour taste in that upset loss in the playoffs last year against Southview. So they'll compete. So I don't think anyone's writing Clay off, but the money's still, in my opinion, beyond Napoleon.
Yeah, and you brought up Southview. They had that Avery Offenberg grand slam that catapulted them over Clay in many regards, a total surprise victory early in the playoffs last year. But I like what Coach Tim McCarthy's doing at Southview. I think they're going to have a chance. I don't necessarily, as I picked Napoleon, I don't think Southview is going to win the title, but I think that they could maybe win a game against the top half of the Cardinal Division, maybe split some of those regular season series. Last year, the NLL went to back-to-back games, playing on a Tuesday and Wednesday, one home, one on the road against the same teams, kind of a mini series format, which I like because you can't, it really speaks to the depth of a pitching rotation as opposed to pitching your ace one time and then you play him 3 weeks later and you play that pitch that same pitcher again. So I like that as a baseball fan. I like Drew Young coming back from a football injury, playing for Southview. Adam LaPlace, Jacob Huss. I think that they got a mixture of experience and some youth that could maybe surprise some teams. And then Bowling Green as well with Coach Fred Riggs. They got Carter Earl, Joey Klein, Rhett Winger, who could make an impact and maybe get some wins. They came up short against St. John's earlier this week in a regular season game. But I think that they could come up and sneak up a little bit in the Cardinal Division.
Plenty of growth from those teams that maybe not on the I'm going to win the Cardinal side, but a lot of talent, a lot of growth from each of those teams to come. That's the Cardinal Division. Now in the books, we're going to the NLL Buckeye, and I think we're going to have a theme here as Cisco puts these picks up. We're across the board, Anthony Wayne. The state agrees. Right, preseason #1 in the state in Division II was Anthony Wayne. You've got Northview following them up, Perrysburg, Findlay, Whitmer, kind of the top 4 or 5 there schools in the NLL or Buckeye, excuse me. But Anthony Wayne is going to be a force to be reckoned with, right? Between Owen Graff and all those other guys they have returning. If you got an ace that's going to Ohio State, you can do all right, right?
100%. Owen Graff, his twin brother, Tanner Graff, also a senior pitcher for the Generals. And this, I don't necessarily want to call it an easy pick because I think there's some other teams in the Buckeye that can challenge Anthony Wayne on a given basis. So to think that they're going to run the table within the Buckeye division, I don't think that's necessarily the case. But the one thing that to bring up here in our first spring baseball episode of the podcast is the division format. We've dealt with it from the fall and the winter, now in the spring, going from 4 divisions up to 7 divisions. So you got Perrysburg and Whitmer competing in Division I, and then Anthony Wayne, Findlay, and Northview in Division II, and then the Cardinal Division teams D3 or on down the line. So that's an interesting caveat to this because typically prior to this year, all of those Buckeye teams were in the same division, battling each other, in some cases in the sectionals before you even get to the districts. So there's opportunities for multiple teams from this division to go on deeper playoff runs. But yeah, Anthony Wayne, we talked about the Graff brothers. Also, I think that Lucas Patkanowicz is a star player. He is all-state accolades as a sophomore. I think that he is no longer going to be sneaking up. There's going to be pitching staffs and coaching staffs going against him, saying, okay, well, he's no longer a 7-hitter or 6-hitter or what, or someone you don't have to necessarily plan for, but he will be this year. But I think Coach Ryan Donnelly has the resources and personnel to put together a solid season once again.
Yeah, and I think Coach Donnelly, you said it, obviously it all starts with pitching, that solid pitching, good defense, but they're a group of hitters. And you mentioned 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, 5 home runs out of the shortstop, in the 6-7 hole as he was hitting last year. The other thing I'll say about the NL, though, which you talked about, Justin, is the back-to-back games. Overall, that builds that pitching staff for all those teams. So that's one of the reasons we see a lot of these NL teams making a good tournament run, because they've built staffs 2-3 deep. Anthony Wayne will be right there at the end, bar none, because they are a complete group this year, and I think they notice that they are the one team, but that will have the target on their back against other good teams. Perrysburg is going to be right there. Northview coming back, not off to the best start yet, but they'll be there at the end of the Buckeye division as well.
Yeah, Northview's Aaron Tullis has done a solid job coming off of Greg Sparka's state tournament victory a few years ago, and Aaron Tullis in many regards has just continued that pedigree going forward, and they got some players that Colin Tomansky, Roman Macaris, they came up short in a close game against St. Francis earlier this week in a cold, frigid. I don't put too much stock in these early frigid temperature games because the advantage goes to the pitchers, clear cut, difficult to be hitting, especially with metal aluminum bats in this weather. But Perrysburg as well. Matt Hubbard was the big horse, that he is now at University of Toledo. I believe he hasn't had any stats just yet, so maybe redshirting for Coach Rob Brenstedt. But Perrysburg, 25 wins last year, reached the state tournament, and everybody knows about Coach Dave Hall. He's going to likely surpass 750 coaching victories this year. He's in his 40th year. You can do the math on that. So there's no, blips on the radar with him. He is always consistent no matter what talent that he has. But Connor Kessinger, Braxton Mefford, I think some guys, Landon Winters as well, who can get it done for the Perrysburg Yellow Jackets.
All right, that is the NLL Buckeye. We've got plenty more to get to. We got to catch our breath, though, with 30 seconds from Buffalo Wild Wings. We will be right back.
Buffalo Wild Wings buy one, get one free boneless Thursdays saved me so much cash, I can finally do everything I've ever wanted in life, like skydiving. You ready? No, this was a mistake, a huge mistake. I want to go back. Go, go, go! Yeah, I'll probably just use the money I saved to get more buy one, get one free boneless wings at B-Dubs. No brainer. Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's go sports bar.
At participating locations, not valid with other offers or discounts. See website or app for details.
Let's go sports bar. Let's go Northern Buckeye Conference, and another one where the picks seem to be pretty well aligned. The Lake Flyers flying high, tough to pick against them after that great state run last season, just one win short of a state title between Tajblik, Kohlhofer, Blazevich, all state returners for the Flyers, looking to push them. Eastwood, Oak Harbor, and I know Scott has a sneaky pick of somebody that he thinks maybe they won't win it, but they're going to put up some competition this season.
Yeah, I kind of like Maumee being a little bit of a sleeper. I had their games a couple times last year, and I really, the Kubitz brothers, and I like what they're doing out there as far as their team chemistry. Yeah. And so, like you said, they may not win this league, but they'll compete a little bit, and then I suspect that they might have another nice tournament run like they did last year.
Yeah, we talked about it before the podcast. That's kind of filling the role, right? We've seen Maumee exploding and playing so well in multiple sport athletes, right? The Kubitz brothers, both multiple sport athletes, see them make plenty of plays on the football field. I was celebrating all of those, as everybody who listens to this podcast knows. But a tough task, right, to live up to what Lake has ready to come.
Yeah, the Kubitz brothers, Ben and Will, have been terrific in any sports that they've played. Coach Todd Erie had them 18 wins last year, so I think that they might be picked a little low. But this NBC, Eastwood continues to get to the district finals or regional trips. Coach Kevin Leedy for Eastwood does a superb job. But yeah, everyone, this is another somewhat easier pick, I think, for Lake, just because, at least on paper, that's why we play the games, we get that. But on paper, when you went to state championship game, come up 2 runs short, losing 3-1 to Heath, and you have a ton of guys back from that team. I know they lost some seniors, but you got Tabjik going to University of Toledo next year. He's one of the top pitchers in the state, especially at this division.
Absolutely.
So I think that Lake has what it takes, and then it's a matter of putting it together and stacking those quality practices and quality wins together on top of each other. But Maumee will be in D4 this year, and then the rest of the NBC teams will be in Division 5. So we're going to see a ton of these teams battle it out in the postseason and repeating basically the regular season because all of them are in the same division.
Yeah, you want to talk about preseason polls, right? Lake preseason number 3 in the state in Division 4, and then Division 5 Eastwood number 4 in the state coming into it. So obviously the expectation's big for both of those teams. You picked Lake for a reason, Scott. What other than what Justin has said is your go-to for that reason?
Well, they are a very focused group. You know, they got close to last year, that returning group, a good offseason. They were in the weight room, a lot of summer innings for them, very focused. They're kind of a state-bound or a bust mentality for them.
Sure.
And given how focused they are, I don't suspect they'll take a day off. So they're going to be prepared to play every day going up there. And just in the NBC, you know, top to bottom conference, 5 sectional championships coming out of that league last year. So top to bottom, just a tough team to compete in.
All right, that is the NBC. And we are now going to move on to our clip of the week, brought to you by Renewal by Anderson. Cisco, you know what to do. You want a clip of the week? Well, we got a guy who was there for it. He knows plenty about this play. St. Francis Northview, Tyler Chupp saving the run or the hit. What a layout out there in right field coming forward. Like you talked about it earlier, right? Windy, cold, can be tough to track that ball. Get your body moving after you've been standing out there in right field for so long. Great play by Tyler Chupp. A 4-1 win for St. Francis over a talented Northview team, right? Great play. Great win. Your pitcher, Julian Coleman, celebrating his boy making a play out there for sure.
100%. That's what you love as a pitcher. If you got a defense who can back you up, of course, if you're a pitcher, hey, I'd like to strike out everybody, but you got to also put the ball in play. Can't wear yourself out and make smart pitches. And then when you can locate pitches, and even sometimes a batter is going to get a ball that is on the fringe or finds a way to find a hole. But when you got a defensive play like that just kind of saves the day, doesn't necessarily save any particular runs because the bases were empty already with one out, but still you just love to play that. Hats off to him, literally.
There we go.
Then diving in for it, a perfect play. And by the way, love those black unis, the tops for St. Francis, loving it.
New look for St. Francis, and you're right, that image right there is in the sun, but that's one of those Northwest Ohio games. All 4 seasons started rain, some sleet going on, but ended up sun. But yeah, Julian Coleman finished the game, retiring the final 10 batters he faced, and it wasn't just all him. It was that good defense behind him, as you saw there, along with Drew Tucker and Nick Hood.
Yeah, we give Julian Coleman his flowers, right? Complete game, 5 strikeouts, only gave up 1 run in a 4-run win, but man, when you got guys behind you, you can pitch with a lot more confidence, right? If you're Julian Coleman, you know, if I missed my spot a little bit, I got somebody like Tyler Chupp there, roaming right field, waiting to make a Sports Center top 10 play kind of deal. Our clip of the week brought to you by Renewal by Anderson. Shout out to Tyler Chupp and, of course, Julian Coleman as well. You want more clips just like this, head over to our TikTok at BCSN Sports. We got to keep this thing rolling. A CHSL play. Time for a CHSL preview. Taking a look at the Catholic High School League, the second year in the CHSL for the Toledo area teams. We're not as much worried about the Detroit area teams. I want to know who you think out of the 3 Toledo teams is going to finish with the best record. Cisco, you got the graphic. Go ahead and throw it up.
Is it unanimous again?
Is it? No.
Spoiler.
We got
got one
Scott
spoiler.
breaking the tide over here.
All right.
There we go.
All right, so yeah, I'm taking St. John's. I think this is quite even. I was trying to decide between St. John's and St. Francis. I think Central Catholic third in my book at the 3 Toledo area Catholic teams, but not by much.
Yeah.
But I think more quality level players across the entire roster, starting 9 for St. John's and Coach Fisher for me. I just think that in his 5 years now, his 5th year, it's kind of hard to believe, the Anthony Wayne product. They went 6-20 last year, but they were not necessarily a 6-20 team. Get this stat. He told me that they played 16 1- to 2-run baseball games last year. 16 out of 26 games were, I'm talking about losing hair or getting some gray hair. That is just brutal. But I think that they grew as the group. They got 8 seniors back this year. He told me keep an eye on JJ Foti, Carson Bruning, John Tober, position players Donovan Mattamore, Kenyon Miller as well. I think all of those guys can have a big impact, and you gain that experience. There's going to be times when you're going and coaching a program, especially over a length of time, you're going to have those kind of riding roller coaster type of deals. And I think that they were down a little bit last year record-wise, but I think they competed, and playing in this Detroit Catholic League, you got Detroit-based teams who have won Michigan State tournaments.
Sure.
Warren De La Salle, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, two of the top ones that are perennial contenders and are contenders once again here in the early going, looking good so far.
Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. That St. Francis, St. John's game is going to be huge. And you're right. I think St. John's is right there. That's a great stat by losing just 16 games by one run. That's how close they are.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't lose 16 games by one run. They were in games.
16,
Some of them they won, some of them they
Okay.
lost. But
Okay.
yeah, just to clarify.
Yeah, nonetheless, that inexperienced group that he had last year, those are some battle wounds right there, and they're coming back. You mentioned JJ threw a game really well against Northview earlier.
Game last week.
Complete game last week to win that game. But I think St. Francis, it's part of that renaissance they have going on right now. They brought that football program back from the brink, so to say. Great run last year. The basketball team, as you know, went on into the tournament. Hockey team, traditional.
Yeah.
They got some hockey players on that, Drew Tucker being one, and they play great defense. They need to find some quality pitching, and Coleman kind of showed that last week against Northview, and we'll see how they swing the bats. But if they can swing the bats, they're going to be a pretty tough a team to beat in the the Catholic League.
Yeah, Nick Hood as well should be able to contribute for Coach Bobby Adil.
Yeah, tale as old as time. We've talked about it repeatedly, right? Broken record here on the podcast, but that CHSL, by the time the season comes to an end, these Toledo teams are so battle ready, right? Coach Bobby Edgell at St. Francis said, you heard about all the D1 athletes they had in basketball. He said, take that and double it. That's the baseball talent that's up there in the CHSL. So they'll go through the gamut, but come back better for it, Justin. One more thing.
St. Francis is a D3 level team this year, and they lost in the regional semis last year in D1 to Perrysburg, who ended up winning and going all the way to the state tournament. So, and then quickly on Jeff Mulcarrick and Central Catholic, they're also a D3 team. They lost 9 one-run games. They got Preston Frizel, Dre Wardrop, Gavin Eckhart, I think could be some potential players who contribute in big ways for the Irish. And they're going to win some games that they maybe not on paper should, but they got a good program as well.
We love multi-sport athletes. All right, time for Taction. You know we love Taction on the BCSN Nation podcast. And this one, another pretty unanimous selection. Hills across the board, a very, very talented team. Preseason number 15 in the state in Division 5, but the talent is immense. And again, multi-sport athletes, including a new face from St. Francis and pitcher Colin Hennessy.
Yeah, he comes over. He's going to be Ohio Dominican product here next year. So he comes over for Coach Chris Hardman, another long tenured, I think 39 years with Ottawa Hills, similar to Dave Hall. Both of those guys broke in back in the day to stellar programs. I think of all of the picks, this one was the easiest as far as the predicted champion. Rocco and Reddick Pillarelli in the outfield, tracking down fly balls. They're going to be a great defensive team, Scott, I think. You got Jackson Snyder, a pitcher and an infielder. You mentioned Colin Hennessy, Finn Gensman as well. I think that they have Toby Stevens, and guys, Ian Densmore, who can contribute in a lot of different ways. And I think Coach Hardman has some utility players. He could take some of these guys and they could play multiple outfield positions. You got at this level especially, you don't have too many I'm only a pitcher type of guys. You got pitchers who are shortstops, pitchers who are third basemen, pitchers who are first basemen.
Yeah, and clearly they're the favorite to win the league here. And, we talk about they're going to compete in D5 this year, but realistically, if you go 1 through probably 6, 7 in their lineup, those kids would probably start or get significant playing time at any D1 team in our area. Sure. Obviously, Colin Hennessy coming over, that's a huge get for them. He pitched St. Francis deep into the tournament last year.
Yes.
Good pedigree from his dad, former Brad Hennessy, who played in the pros. Jackson Snyder, a returning all-district player.
In every sport, it seems like at this point. Yeah,
absolutely. Right. And Justin mentioned Ian Densmore. He picks up a win. So if they can develop one more pitcher, they're going to put a nice little run together in the tournament.
6 of the last 7 TAC crowns have been in Ottawa Hills. Doesn't seem like that's going to change this year. Quickly, though, back to the City League, where, again, somebody has been winning this crown repeatedly. 11 of the last 12 have been start. Lima Senior came in last year in what seemed like every single sport, and dethroned the Spartans, took a City League crown home 11-4, was a City League championship that Lima Senior won, but Start tabbed in that Blade preseason poll, the coaches poll, to win for the 12th out of the last 13 years.
Yeah, Coach Dan Weiss has 𝗦𝗫𝗶𝗵𝘁 and Brandon Bowman for Start, and an opposing coach told me within the City League that Bryce and Braden are going to be two of the top level players because of what they did last year. Bowman had a 4-2 record and a 2.67 ERA last year, and then 𝗦𝗫𝗶𝗵𝘁 had a school record 40 stolen bases. And Scott, that's the type of guy that I love as a coach, someone who can impact the game in multiple ways, not just, okay, I hit 440, but someone who's a speed on the base path, and then all of the things that comes with irritating opposing pitchers, right, and then taking your mind off of approach to get a batter out. You got to worry about someone on the base path. So I like that. On the side for Bowsher, Ken Baum, the coach there, Kyle Schropp, Roy McCrandle, Landon Imhoff, some impact players for them. Yep. Kyle Schropp going to play at Lourdes University.
Yeah, the returning City League Player of the Year. Batted .490, 26 RBI last year. No big deal for Kyle Schropp, but it's your pick, Lima Senior, to take the City League crown.
I had that game last year against Lima Senior and Start, where Lima Senior wins that game. And talking to Coach Reed after the game, and then
seeing
those kids and how they worked and kind of came together.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ride them until Start proves me wrong.
I'm there. I'm with that.
I took Start, as you see it on your screen. If you're listening at home, give me the Start Spartans. I just think they have that tradition. I think tradition can go a long way, Scott. I know that each season is in and to of itself, but I tell you what, when you have a team who just knows only one thing and how to win within the City League, Start has done well in their league, but has struggled once they got to the postseason, just based on maybe the competition that they face from March all the way through the early part of May. But I think that Bowsher could maybe sneak up, and obviously you think Lima could as well.
Yeah, and you go back to Start's tradition, and I think they did get a little bit of a wake-up call going into that league championship game last year. They kind of got there and kind of went through the motions. That's not going to be the case this year. And Justin's correct. And 𝗦𝗫𝗶𝗵𝘁, he's a player, and he's fun to watch. He makes things happen on the base path, and he's on the base path a lot. So Start is going to contend, but until they beat Lima Senior, I'm going to ride Lima Senior.
There you have it. Your official predictions of the preseason. I guess we'll call them our preseason because the season's just getting started. This is our first episode. Those are your predictions for the area leagues from the BCSN Nation podcast. If you're upset with our picks, send them somewhere else. I think Mike Robb likes them. I don't know. Mike Robb likes when people are upset about stuff, right? All right, that's it. 30 seconds for Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll come back and get you ready for what's going on BCSN for the rest of the week. Hit it, Cisco.
I've saved so much money enjoying Buffalo Wild Wings BOGO half-off traditional wing Tuesdays. I can finally afford everything I've ever wanted in life. Wings. All I ever wanted was more wings. So yeah, buy one, get one half-off traditional wings is the perfect deal for me and my lifetime yearnings. I value it more than literally anything. Buffalo Wild Wings. Let's go sports bar.
At participating locations, not valid with other offers or discounts. See website or app for details.
I value my games list more than literally anything. So does Midas. That's why their name is on it. A packed upcoming games list. We haven't seen one of these in a while that's been loaded, but boy, we got plenty coming your way. Whitmer and Clay in NLL crossover action. That's tonight. Central Catholic St. Ursula and a little CHSL 419 action on the softball side. And then the Hens and the Fish are back in town, and they're keeping us plenty busy. Losing a tough one to Iowa last night, 14-1 to the Hens, but they got plenty more chances Thursday, Friday, going back at it. And, of course, the Walleye back in town taking on Fort Wayne as the playoff push begins for the Fish. And then start Fremont Ross, a nice City League NLL crossover. And then Western Michigan BG on softball. Gentlemen.
Yeah, looking forward to all these matchups, always weather permitting this time of the year. We're trying to get out of these 40-degree temperatures.
The desk is wood, I'm knocking.
Potential for rain, yeah, I'll knock on it too. But hats off to everybody who tried to get these games in because we appreciate it at BCSN. Whitmer and Clay on the baseball side. We didn't talk too much about Whitmer. I know, Brandon,
replacing
you got your
a lot of huge parts that
Coach
team is.
LaPointe in his first year has a rebuilding effort. And then we already talked about Coach Jim Phillips at Clay. Looking forward to that Buckeye versus Cardinal matchup, Central Catholic and St. Ursula. We have two of our new softball analysts there, Alyssa and Sarah, who will be joining us next week on the softball version of the podcast. She'll be on the call for that one, and Mars Deemer. two former Anthony Wayne General and Perrysburg Yellow Jackets star players who went on to play in college, joining our BCSN staff as color analysts.
There you go. We appreciate you joining us for this episode, the first of baseball season. Of course, we appreciate Scott Tucker stepping in to be our pinch hitter
Thank you.
this
He
episode.
hit a double to the gap.
Double the gap.
Double to the gap.
No
2
complaints.
RBIs.
That's right.
We'll put
These
him in the
legs,
cleanup.
these legs I got to first.
Putting him in the cleanup. We'll be back next week for softball.